Close your eyes. Not yet. Not quite yet. Just let them grow heavy. Let the weight of the day begin to press down on them. The long accumulated gravity of every hour you have carried since you woke this morning. Let that weight find your eyelids first, letting it settle there, soft and dark, like a velvet curtain being drawn slowly across a window as the last grey light of afternoon disappears behind the hills. There is nothing you need to do right now, and there is nowhere you need to be. The world outside, the bright, insistent, relentless world with its noise and its demands and its endless lists of unfinished things, that world is receding. It is pulling back like a tide, slipping away from the shore of your awareness, and what it leaves behind is something very quiet and very still and very dark. You're on a bus. You may not have realised it yet, but you have been on this bus for some time now. It is an old bus, the kind with wide worn seats upholstered in something faded and soft, the kind with windows that rattle gently in their metal frames and fog at the corners from the sharp cold outside. The engine hums beneath you, a low and rhythmic sound, a sound like a heartbeat, like a slow and steady thing that has been carrying you faithfully through the dark for miles and miles without complaint. It is raining. Listen to it. The rain falls on the roof of the bus in 1,000 tiny, soft percussions. It is not the violent drumming of a summer storm, but the patient, settling rain of a fall midnight. Each drop a small, unhurried thing, falling because it has always fallen, because the sky is full and the earth is ready to receive it, because this is simply what the rain does when the hour is late and the waking world has finally gone to sleep. Tap, 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 tap. It is a rhythm older than language, older than thought. Your body knows it, and your blood knows it. Something deep in the oldest part of your brain recognizes this sound as safe, as the sound of shelter, of enclosure, of being securely inside, while the cold and the dark remain respectfully outside, exactly where they belong. Let your shoulders drop. You may not have noticed that you were holding them up. We carry so much tension in our shoulders, weeks of it, sometimes even months. The weight of glowing screens and difficult conversations and small anxieties stacked like river stones across the back of your neck. Let them go. Let the seat hold you. Let the old soft upholstery take the weight of your back and say, I have you. You don't have to hold yourself up anymore. The bus is moving slowly now. The warm headlights sweep across wet pine trees as the road curves, and the trees are very tall and very dark, the light catching the rain as it falls through their branches in cascading showers of silver needles. You're going somewhere. You've been going somewhere for a long time. It is a place that is small and quiet and waiting for you at the end of this winding road. Let your jaw unclench. Notice how tightly you have been holding it. The subtle, chronic grip of the day. The way your teeth press together when you concentrate or worry or simply exist in the loud world for too long. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Let your lips part just slightly, just enough to breathe more deeply. Breathe in through the nose. The air inside the bus is warm and carries the faint, nostalgic smell of old upholstery and rain-soaked pine from somewhere out in the dark. Breathe out through the mouth, slow and quiet and complete. The bus begins to slow. It does not stop suddenly, and it does not jolt. It eases, the way all good journeys ease at their end, its low hum to something barely there. The thick trees thin outside the window, and through the rain-blurred glass you can see, very faintly, a cluster of lights. Small lights, warm lights, yellow and amber, hazing through the steady rain like lanterns seen through gauze. You are here. The bus groans to a stop with a long, settling exhale. Very much like the breath you're taking right now, in fact. It is a deep sigh of arrival. The hydraulics hiss, there is a thick pause, and then the doors fold open with a soft chunk thud, and a breath of cold night air rushes in. It arrives not harshly, not brutally, but with the quiet insistence of the outdoors, carrying on it the smell of wet earth, of pine needles, of wood smoke from somewhere distant, and of the cold, clean nothingness of a valley wrapped in autumn rain. Let your hands relax, your fingers. Let each one uncurl. You have been gripping. Perhaps a phone, perhaps a lingering thought, perhaps simply the edge of the waking world. Let it go. Let your hands lie open, palms upward or downward. It does not matter. Just soft and still. The way hands look when they belong to someone who is deeply, peacefully, completely asleep. You stand, and the movement is entirely effortless. This is a dream place, and here your body does exactly what you ask of it, without a single complaint. You pull your coat tighter, a good coat, heavy and warm, the collar turned up against the damp, and you step down the rubber-edged stairs of the bus until your boot finds the ground. Gravel, wet gravel, dark with rain, and the sound of it under your boot is a small, satisfying crunch. The kind of sound that is entirely real, entirely present, entirely here. The bus doors fold shut behind you. The engine murmurs, hesitates, and then the headlights sweep back through the trees as the bus pulls away down the road, its red tail lights shrinking through the rain until they are gone, and you are left alone. You are alone in the dark, in the rain, in the valley. But it is not a frightening alone. It is the alone of 4 in the morning when the rest of the world sleeps. The alone that feels, paradoxically, like a profound kind of company. The company of a world that is not watching you, judging you, or demanding anything from you. It is the company of rain and pine, and the distant sound of a creek somewhere below the road, running fast and cold and indifferent and perfect. Begin walking. The path ahead is packed dirt and gravel, winding downhill through a corridor of pine and autumn fir. The trees close above you, not entirely, not enough to shut out the rain, but enough to change its sound completely. Against the open sky, the rain is a whisper. Under the trees, it is 1,000 tiny voices, each leaf and bough, passing the water down to the next in an endless chain, until it drips from the lowest branches in fat, slow drops that fall into the puddles on the path with small, round sounds. Blip, blip, blip. Your legs are heavy, but not painfully so. It is not the heaviness of exhaustion or illness, but the good heaviness of a body that has been sufficiently used in the day, and is now, at last, being given full permission to slow. Your thighs feel warm and weighted. Your calves feel loose. With each step, the heaviness deepens a little more, spreads a little further, as though the earth itself is gently pulling you downward, toward it, reminding you of your own soothing gravity. You do not have to rush. There is nowhere you have to be before you get there. Feel the rain on your face, the lightest touch, barely a sensation, just the fine mist that hangs in the air when the real rain is gentle and the night air is entirely strangely still. It is cold, but not unpleasantly so. It is the cool of a damp compress laid against a warm brow, the cool that wakes you gently to the fact that you are alive, that you are here, that your skin is a real and present thing. Let it wake you down. Let it walk you slowly from your racing waking mind into something vastly quieter. The path curves, and through a gap in the trees you see them again. Those warm amber lights, closer now, winking through the steady rain. It is a town. A small, impossibly small town, tucked into the fold of a valley between forested hills, lit by the kind of light that only exists in places the bustling world has almost entirely forgotten about. You can hear the rain differently from here, the low, constant whisper of it on rooftops, on wooden porches, on the broad leaves of the pumpkin patches, and the wild grass at the edge of the farms. You pass a wooden sign, Pelican Town. It is too dark to read the population number carved beneath it, and that is fine, because that number does not matter right now. What matters is the path under your feet, the rain on your heavy coat, the weight in your limbs, and the slow, unmistakable feeling of arriving somewhere you belong. Your breathing has slowed. Notice that. Notice how the breath that began this journey, perhaps tight in your chest, perhaps held slightly in the upper lungs, has migrated downward during this walk. It has dropped into your belly now, where all good breath lives, where the deep, unclenched, sleeping breath lives, in through the nose, your belly rising, out through the mouth, making barely a sound, in, out, in. You pass the community centre, dark, shuttered, draped in the shadows of old vines and older dreams. You pass the blacksmith shop with its cold forge and its faint metallic smell of iron. You pass the clinic, one upstairs window softly lit. You pass the empty road that leads to the river and the trailer at its end, and you pass the general store and the empty wooden benches of the town square, slick and shining with rain. You are in Pelican Town. It is midnight, and the rain is falling everywhere, on everything, on everyone. And this is exactly where your story, or rather theirs, truly begins. Stand still for a moment. Stand in the centre of the cobblestone square and let the rain fall on your shoulders, and let the lights of the Stardew saloon fall on your face. Let your eyes grow heavy, and your breath grow slow, and your bones grow soft inside your skin. And just listen. Listen to the rain. It has something to tell you, if you stay still long enough to hear. Let your feet grow heavy against the wet cobblestones. Let your ankles relax. Those small, complicated joints that carry you all day and are so rarely thanked for their immense labour. Let the tension drain out of them, down through the thick soles of your boots, into the wet stone, into the ancient earth beneath it. Let your knees soften. Let your hips unlock. Let your spine find its natural length, unspooling downward, each vertebra settling softly onto the next, like river stones stacked perfectly in the current. You are not going anywhere, not anymore. The night is long, and the rain is patient, and the town is full of quiet, ordinary people dreaming their quiet, complicated dreams. Somewhere in the warm and lantern-lit dark of the overgrown farmhouse at the end of the dirt road, your bed is waiting for you, but not yet. First, there are stories. Breathe in and let them begin. Phase 2, the town centre and the saloon. The Stardew saloon stands at the edge of the town square, the way old things stand in small towns, not Its wooden sign hangs damp and heavy in the rain. Its windows glow amber. From inside comes the faintest suggestion of warmth, the ghost of a crowd that has long since gone home, the lingering echo of music that has stopped playing but has not quite finished resonating in the wooden walls. Most of the lights are off, but not all of them. Shane, stand here, in the rain, outside the saloon window and look through the glass. The bar is quiet now. The wooden stools are empty. The tables have been wiped and the chairs turned up on them, legs pointing toward the low ceiling, and Gus is somewhere in the back, behind the swinging kitchen door, the sounds of his work reduced to an occasional muted clatter, the distant company of a man who has always filled his silences with warm industry. And at the far end of the bar, on the same stool he always sits on, the one nearest the corner, the one with its back to the wall, is Shane. He is not drunk. Not exactly. But he is not sober either. He exists in that particular middle country that belongs exclusively to people who have been drinking long enough and consistently enough that the alcohol no longer transforms them the way it once did. It simply maintains a condition, holds a heavy door slightly open, keeps the worst of the dark from closing in completely. He sits with both hands wrapped around a mug of something that might be coffee and might be something stronger. The mug is warm, but his hands are cold. He is not looking at anything. This is important to understand about Shane. When you see him, and he appears to be staring at the wooden wall, or at the bottom of his glass, or at the middle distance, somewhere past your left ear, he is not lost in thought the way some people are lost in thought. He is not composing poetry or running through careful regrets or making elaborate plans. He is simply elsewhere, temporarily vacated, left the building with the lights on. It is a skill he has developed over years of not wanting to be where he is, and it is one of the only skills that has never failed him. But look closer. Look at the way his thumb moves. Just slightly, almost imperceptibly, against the side of the mug, back and forth. A small, self-soothing motion, the kind a child makes without knowing they're making it. Back and forth. The smooth glaze of the ceramic under his callous thumb. It is the only part of him that is still here. Shane works at Jojo Mart. You probably know this, but knowing a fact and understanding a fact are two very different things, and the distance between knowing and understanding is exactly the distance between looking at someone and seeing them. Jojo Mart is a big box store that has settled over this part of the valley the way a heavy stone settles over a creek. Not decisively, not with dramatic energy, just with the slow, inexorable pressure of its own weight, gradually diverting everything that used to flow freely into narrower and narrower channels. It is lit with the particular white light of eternity, the light that has no source and no shadows, that is simply everywhere, always, without variation or mercy. It smells of plastic and cold air. The music that plays in it is designed specifically to prevent you from noticing time passing. Shane has stood under that light for years. He has stocked its shelves, managed its inventory, absorbed its ambient corporate cheerfulness, like a man absorbing radiation, invisibly, cumulatively, with consequences that only become apparent long after the exposure has already occurred. He could have been a farmer. He almost was once, or rather, he always was, in some deep and animal sense that never had the opportunity to express itself. Before Jojo Mart, the long years of the fluorescent lights, there was a version of Shane that existed in a different relationship with the land. His Aunt Marnie, who runs the sprawling ranch at the southern edge of town, tried to give him that. She raised chickens and she let him help, and for a while, when he was young and the valley was still the whole world, he knew the difference between a hen that was going broody and a hen that was simply moody. He knew the fragile weight of a warm egg in the palm of his hand. He knew that his presence in the coop in the early morning, his specific voice, his specific footsteps, could mean something to another living creature, could cause a small brown bird to lift its head and make a soft sound it would not make for anyone else. That was before. Now he stocks shelves. Now he comes home to his rented room inside Marnie's ranch and walks out to sit by the edge of the river, or stands over the cliffside at the southern edge of Cindersap Forest, watching the dark water, and drinks and tries to feel something that isn't the particular grey nothing that has replaced everything else. The natural world is very big and very indifferent, and he finds, increasingly, that he prefers this. Big, indifferent things do not require anything from you. The deep forest lake does not need him to be better, or try harder, or smile on his way past the checkout. The water simply exists in its own massive, churning continuity, and on his best nights, which are not frequent, he can almost find something peaceful in the parallel. He is small. The world is large. These are simply facts, and facts, unlike expectations, cannot be failed. And then there is Jazz. Jazz is his goddaughter by way of a friend who is no longer alive, and this is the vital detail about Shane that most people in town do not fully grasp. The weight of it. The specific, terrible weight of loving a small child while being a person who is actively struggling to love themselves. He is the one who reads to her. He is the one who notices when she has had a bad day. He is the one who sits between her and the worst of what he is, building a wall with his body, trying to be, not a father exactly, because he is not that, could never claim to be that, but something, a shield, a windbreak, a low, stubborn thing that stands between a small girl and the harsh weather of the world. He is not doing a perfect job of it, and he knows this, and the gap between the job he is doing and the job that Jazz deserves, that gap is not closed by effort or intention or even love. It is closed by healing, and healing is a thing that requires help, and help is the thing that requires asking, and asking is the thing that requires believing, even just barely, that you are worth the immense resources it would take to heal you. And some nights, most nights, sitting on that bar stool with the mug in his hands and Gus rattling pots somewhere behind the wall, Shane is not sure that he believes that. Not tonight. The rain falls heavy on the saloon roof. He wraps his hands tighter around the mug. His thumb moves, back and forth, back and forth. Penny walk away from the saloon window, walk past the empty garden plots and the wet wooden benches, and across the little stone bridge, and down the dirt path that runs beside the river, where the reeds grow tall and dark in the rain, and the water moves quickly over its smooth stones with a sound like hushed arguing. The trailer is at the end of this path. You can see it before you reach it. A low, boxy shape in the dark, its metal sides the colour of rust and old decisions. There is one window lit, and even this light is faint, not the warm amber of the saloon, but the thin She is always reading when she can find the quiet for it. She reads the way some people breathe, not as luxury, not as hobby, but as fundamental metabolic function. Without it, something essential inside her simply stops working. She reads library books and books she buys second-hand from the city, and books she has read so many times, their spines have given up and their pages fall out in gentle surrender, and she tucks those loose pages back in with the same careful, automatic tenderness she applies to everything she does. She is sitting on the edge of her small bed, which is also the edge of the living area, because the trailer does not have edges or space to spare. With her knees folded up and her back against the thin wall, and the flashlight balanced delicately between her chin and her shoulder. From the other side of the thin partition wall comes the sound of her mother sleeping. Pam! The sound is not peaceful. It is congested, irregular, punctuated by small grunts and heavy repositionings. The sleep of someone who has spent the entire evening anesthetizing themselves and is now processing that choice in the only way the human body knows how, with brutality and chemistry and the deep tidal breathing of a person who is not so much resting as merely surviving until morning. Penny does not comment on this sound, not even in her own mind. She has heard it every night of her life. She simply pages to the next chapter. It is incredibly difficult to explain from the outside what it means to grow up inside a parent's need. The word most people use is parentification, a clinical, sterile word for a human experience that has very little that is clinical about it. It means that somewhere very early, long before you had the language to name it or the perspective to resist it, you understood that your primary role in your family was not simply to be small and curious and hungry and growing. Your role was to manage, to smooth things over, to anticipate the mood of the room the way an anxious sailor anticipates the weather, not because you have any power over the storm, but because if you can see it coming, you can at least brace yourself against the mast. Penny manages. She manages the trailer, not perfectly, not in the way a house with a proper kitchen and reliable plumbing can be managed, but she manages. She keeps things clean. She minds the bills, the ones she can find, the ones that haven't been lost in the general archaeology of Pam's coat pockets and the sticky spaces between couch cushions. She teaches the children of Pelican Town in the little unofficial library classroom beside the museum. Vincent and Jazz most consistently, because she loves learning, and because she is good at making it feel safe, and because it gives her something profoundly useful to do with the particular kind of care she generates in quantities that have nowhere else to go. She is very good with children. Children do not judge the trailer. Children do not carry in their eyes the particular look that some adults in town carry. Not cruelty, not even pity exactly, just a kind of careful, diplomatic non-acknowledgement that is somehow vastly worse than either. Children do not notice that her books are second-hand, or that her coat is a season behind, or that there is sometimes a faint smell in her hair that she has to wash out carefully before she sees people, a smell that comes from an enclosed space, and a specific kind of neglect that seeps relentlessly through thin walls. She is 20-some years old, and she has never lived anywhere else. She has never, not once, in a way that she allowed herself to fully think through, planned future that did not include coming home to this rusted trailer and checking whether Pam had made it home safely and making sure there was something to eat in the fridge. This is not a sacrifice. Not exactly. Sacrifice implies a clear-eyed choice. What Penny has is more like a slow, quiet forgetting, a gradual narrowing of what she allows herself to want, the way a path through tall grass narrows when no one walks the outer edges anymore. She still wants things. She wants very much, in fact. She wants to go to the city. She wants to see the library there, the big one she has read about, with its cavernous reading rooms and its tall windows, and its smell of serious, voluminous, accumulated knowledge. She wants to study. She wants to be a teacher, a real one, with a classroom and a curriculum and a set of small wooden desks that belong to her. She wants, very quietly and with a lot of ambivalence, someone who will simply be glad to see her arrive, not because she has something to offer, not because she is useful, but because she herself, her specific presence, her quiet voice, her way of looking at things, is something someone has been desperately waiting for. She's not let herself want that very loudly. Not yet. The flashlight flickers in the dark. She shakes it. It steadies, and she turns to the next page. The rain on the trailer roof is very loud, much louder than in the saloon, because the trailer is metal, and the rain a snow-softening layer of thick wood or shingles between them. It lands with a tinny rat-a-tat percussion that fills the small space the way music fills a room, not quite drowning out the sound of Pam's breathing, but giving it a rhythm at least, a kind of accidental, rain-made music that makes the whole night feel slightly less like what it actually is. Penny reads. Her lips move, just slightly. This is the part she has never told anyone, that when she reads, she hears the words out loud in her head, spoken in a voice that is not quite her own, cleaner somehow, and slower, and entirely without the slight apology that always lives in her actual voice. When she reads, the voice in her head is the voice of someone who has already lived through what she is imagining and come out safely on the other side. Someone who is simply okay. She reads until the flashlight gives out completely. Then she lies in the dark and listens to the rain and feels something very close to hope. Too careful to call it hope, but something in its family. And then she sleeps. Harvey, look up. Not at the mountain tower, not yet, but at the brick clinic, second floor, where a warm yellow light burns faithfully in the window, and behind it you can see, if you stand at exactly the right angle in the wet street, the suggestion of a shape, a man at a desk. And if you listen, really listen, past the drumming rain, past the rushing creek, past the faint hiss of the wind through the eaves, you might catch the smallest thread of sound. Static. And through the static, very faintly, the staccato ghost of a radio signal. A shortwave frequency. Voices in Portuguese from a station in Lisbon. Voices in Japanese from a station in Osaka. Weather reports from commercial ships somewhere in the dark middle of the North Atlantic. Numbers, read in the flat and methodical voice of an automated system that mean nothing to anyone who does not already know their hidden meaning. Harvey knows their meaning. Harvey has been a doctor in Pelican Town for, it is hard to say how long exactly, long enough that people have started simply calling him Doc, the way you call those who are genuinely good at their work tend to care, not with dramatic bedside theatre, but with the careful retention of detail, the remembered comment about the cat, the noticed hesitation before the patient answers the question about alcohol. He holds his patient's information lightly but completely. He forgets nothing, but he never makes you feel held down by what he remembers. And he is the only doctor in a town of roughly 28 people. This number is a fact, and like many facts, its implications are more disturbing the longer you sit with them. He is it. Beyond a certain threshold of seriousness, every medical emergency in Pelican Town requires a call to the distant city, a drive on winding roads that are sometimes, in deep winter, entirely treacherous. He is the bridge between fine and not fine, and the bridge is 1 lane wide and made of a single person who has deep fears of his own and who goes home at night to a quiet apartment above the clinic and lies awake sometimes, like now, thinking about the gap between what he knows and what he does not know, and whether the gap is large enough to matter, and what it would mean if, one day, it truly was. Maru, his brilliant assistant, helps immensely, but the final weight always rests on his shoulders. He is afraid of flying. This surprises people. It surprises them, not because fear of flying is unusual. It is not. It is very common. It is one of the most statistically ordinary of all fears. But because Harvey does not seem, in the ordinary course of things, like someone who is afraid of anything, he projects a calibrated calm. He wears a neat cardigan. He speaks in measured sentences. These are the qualities of a person who has the situation entirely in hand. A person who has assessed the variables and is comfortable with the mathematical odds. But the shortwave radio sitting on his desk tells a very different story. He wanted to fly. It is possible he has always wanted to fly. Not as a poetic metaphor, not as some grand philosophical statement about freedom. He is far too practical for grand statements, but specifically, literally, with genuine intent. He studied, he researched, he entertained, seriously and in detail, the private fantasy of obtaining a medical license for a small aircraft, something modest, a single-engine plane, the kind that skims just above the cloud layer and gives you the beautiful illusion that the world below is merely a map and not a place that has relentless claims on you. But Harvey is afraid of heights. The irony of this is not lost on him. He has sat with it for years, turned it over, the way you turn over a stone to see what lies beneath it, and what lies beneath it is the specific, humiliating contradiction of a man who dreams of altitude and is completely undone by standing on a stepladder. The fear is not rational. He knows this, clinically, better than anyone, because he has read the medical literature and understands the neurological mechanisms, and absolutely none of this intellectual understanding has ever done anything useful in the specific moment when the ground drops away below him and his nervous system declares a red alert emergency that his intellect cannot override. It is a bodily fear, a cellular fear, the kind that lives deep in the amygdala and does not receive memos from the prefrontal cortex. So, he listens. He listens to the radio in his apartment, in the dark above his clinic, and hears the voices of people suspended between the earth and the clouds, moving through the dark at impossible speeds, and the sound is like reading someone else's diary, intimate and excluded, and full of the particular sharp ache of a door that is closed to you, but not to others. The pilots speak in the calm, deliberate language of people who have made peace with the fact of being very far above the ground, and Harvey finds something in that language. Not comfort exactly, but company. The company of people who have gone somewhere he cannot follow. He cannot fly because of what his body does when the ground becomes small, and he cannot fly because of his eyesight, and he cannot fully leave because of his patience. And the thing about being the only doctor in a place is that it is, in a very real sense, a form of captivity, the most earnest and voluntary form imaginable, the kind that you chose and continue to choose and would choose again without hesitation, but captivity nonetheless. He cannot go to the city because who would see Evelyn for her check-ins? Who would refill the necessary prescriptions? Who would sit with the elderly residents when they have the particular kind of appointments that elderly people need to have with some regularity? Who would be there? The radio murmurs. A pilot somewhere over the Pacific is requesting a change in heading. Harvey closes his eyes and tilts his head back and listens to the voice as though it is a beautiful piece of music, as though he can extract from its calm and competent syllables something that will last him through the night, some small supply of the largeness he cannot access for himself. The rain on the clinic window is very soft. He breathes in through the nose. He breathes out through the mouth. He is not unhappy. He is simply in the wrong orbit, circling correctly and diligently at a radius slightly smaller than the life he imagined, and the discipline of the circle is real, and its value is real, and the people it serves are real, and none of that changes the fact of the view from inside it. He falls asleep in his chair. The radio continues without him, voices rising and falling in the static, and somewhere above the clouds, a plane moves through the dark, entirely unconcerned. Emily and Haley. The house on Willow Lane is the prettiest one in town. Everyone agrees about this. It has window boxes, empty now, late in the fall, but you can clearly see the dried stalks of what were once bright summer geraniums, and a porch with a wooden railing and a door painted a vibrant blue that is almost exactly the colour of a sky that exists somewhere far warmer and brighter than here. It is a house that has been deeply cared for. It is a house that is trying very, very hard. The lights are mostly off. Look through the downstairs window first. The pink room. Haley's room. She is standing at her vanity. It is midnight, and she is standing at her vanity, and she is brushing her hair. This is not unusual for her, and the unusual thing is that it is not unusual for her. 100 strokes. She learned this somewhere, read it in a glossy magazine, or heard it from someone, and the fact that it is probably not true, probably not necessary, has never lowered the count. She counts them by feel, not number, a muscle memory rhythm that occupies just enough of her mind to keep the other parts from doing what they desperately want to do at midnight, which is dwell. Haley is beautiful, and she knows this. Everyone in town knows this. It is the thing most people know first about her, and for many of them, it is the thing they know last, because beauty of a certain obvious kind tends to act as a full stop, a sentence that ends before the interesting parts even begin. She has long, pale blonde hair. She has striking cheekbones, and the particular that suggest she has thought about them, and she has, not because she is shallow, though she has allowed people to believe this, has even leaned into it because it is much easier than the alternative, but because clothes are something she can control, and control is a thing she wants very badly. Her parents left to travel the world. They sent a letter from the Fern Islands explaining they had money and time and a desire to see everything, the kind of journey that makes their departure something that simply happens to you rather than a choice you were part of. They said, the house is yours. They said, call if you need us. They left forwarding addresses and phone numbers that lead to voicemail boxes that respond in the tones of people who are very busy living large lives and will get back to you when circumstances allow. Hayley never calls. Emily calls occasionally. Emily sends careful, brief messages that maintain a thin current of communication, the way you run a thin current through a motor to keep it from seizing completely. Hayley does not even do this much. Hayley has calculated, without quite using the word, decided, without the formality of a choice, that the space between what was promised by a family and what was actually given is a space large enough to fall into, and she has absolutely no interest in standing at its crumbling edge and calling down into it. What she does instead is this: she exists, visibly and beautifully, in the only place they left her. She takes photographs, she tends the house, she cultivates her appearance with the specific devotion of someone who has identified the one thing they can point to and say, this, I did this, I made this, worth looking at. And she keeps it going because the alternative to pride is something she absolutely won't name. And sometimes, at midnight, she stands at the vanity and brushes her hair and watches herself in the mirror and catches, very briefly, in the half second before she can restructure her expression, something that looks exactly like the face of someone very young who is waiting to be told they did not have to do this alone. She restructures the expression. She counts 84, 85. Now look up. The small window at the corner of the house, facing east, the one with the faint light that is not lamplight but candlelight, moving gently with the air in the room, casting soft shadows that shift and breathe. Emily's room. Emily is sitting on the floor, not casually, with clear intention. She is sitting cross-legged, her hands resting open on her knees, palms up, her spine very straight, in the way that spines go straight when they have been practiced, when sitting up is not collapse but careful cultivation. Her eyes are closed. On the small table beside her, the candle burns, and its smoke rises in a thin, straight column before the draught finds it and tilts it slightly, and the warm light moves on the walls. She is meditating. She meditates every evening, for as long as it takes. She finds it easier than sleeping, and she finds it easier than thinking, and she has gotten very good at it. Good enough that the people around her sometimes call it serene, and she happily accepts this word because it is not precisely wrong, and because she does not have a better one to offer. But here is the thing about Emily that the candle and the straight spine and the open hands do not quite convey. The peace she has cultivated is not the peace of someone who has put down their heavy burden. It is the peace of someone who has learned to carry their burden so efficiently that it no longer shows in their posture. She has optimized the carrying. She has made it graceful. She has turned the fact of the immense labour its utter absence. Her parents left her too. She was older, old enough to make it look like an agreeable departure rather than an abandonment, old enough that the words, "the house is yours," could be reframed as a generous gift rather than a disposal. She has reframed it. She has reframed it so many times, in so many bright colours and spiritual contexts, using so many of the vocabulary, words of self-help and mystical practice, that she sometimes cannot find the original version anymore. The version that was simply two girls standing in a house that used to belong to a family and now belonged only to them, alone, in a town at the end of a road. She is relentlessly positive. Toxically, perhaps. Not that she would use this word. Not that she would ever recognise it, because the toxicity of certain positivities is visible only from outside them. From inside, it feels like strength. From inside, it feels like the correct response to a world that is hard. To insist, loudly and constantly, that it is also deeply beautiful. That everything is a cosmic lesson. That absolute gratitude is the appropriate orientation toward all experiences, including the ones that are simply, plainly bad. Sometimes Haley says, "You don't always have to be okay." Emily smiles. Emily says, "I know, I'm not always okay. I just choose to be." And she completely means it. And Haley looks at her and feels something she does not have the words for. Something closely adjacent to grief. Specifically, the grief of watching someone you deeply love maintain a position that protects them from exactly the thing they need. The candle flickers. Emily breathes in. She breathes out. She is so profoundly present in this moment, in this room, in this life. She has made herself fully present by a specific act of will that has taken years to develop. The will to not think about what is not here. The house in the warmth of their childhood. The dinner table with 4 chairs around it. The sound of her parents' voices on an ordinary Tuesday before the Fern Islands were a permanent fixture in their vocabulary. She is present. She is okay. She breathes. And in the pink room downstairs, her sister brushes her hair for the 94th time, and the rain makes its patient sound on the window, and every light in Pelican Town is out except this one, this small, faithful, struggling flame. Phase 3, the mountain path and the forest. Leave the town square behind you and walk north. The path that leads up the mountain is narrower than the road through town, and it climbs steadily. And the rain follows you. Of course it does. The rain goes everywhere tonight, falls on everything, makes no distinction between the cobblestones and the dirt, between the places people choose to be and the places they simply end up. The mud on this winding path is soft and dark, and your boots press into it with each step, leaving small craters that fill immediately with water, as though the earth is trying to erase the evidence of your passing. The trees are older up here. You can feel it without seeing it. Some quality of the dark under these higher branches that is vastly different from the dark down in the town, denser and taller and older. It is the accumulated dark of decades, of centuries perhaps, in which these trees have stood on this hillside and grown incrementally upward, ring by piney ring, year by patient year, adding themselves to themselves, the way all patient things gradually become more than they once were. The underbrush drips, great ferns, dark and glossy with water, brush gently against your coat as you climb. The smell up here is different. More resin, more earth, world, there is less wood smoke and less lantern oil, and more of the particular green darkness that forests produce when they breathe at night, the slow, vast exhalation of 10,000 plants processing the world and releasing it, miraculously transformed as pure oxygen and damp. You climb and the lights of the town disappear behind the rolling hill. You are alone with the forest now, and with the rain, and with the path underfoot, which is exactly where you need to be. Sebastian and Maru. The carpenter's shop sits at the base of the mountain, like a solid, practical sentence. No ornament, no excess, built from the same sturdy timber that surrounds it, which gives it the appearance of having grown from the ground rather than being constructed upon it. At this hour, every window is dark except for one, a small window at the base of the house, below the grade of the main floor, visible only as a faint blue-white glow from the ground level. A basement window. Sebastian's window. Come closer and crouch in the wet grass and look through the glass. What you see is not chaos, though from certain angles it could look like it. It is the organised, intense complexity of a person who has made their immediate environment into the only space in the world that belongs entirely to them. Multiple monitors glow, always more than one, because a single screen is insufficient for the kind of rapid branching thinking he does, the kind that requires seeing many things simultaneously and switching between them faster than language can track. The blue light of the screens washes over the room. The hum of server fans that never stop provides a constant, low mechanical breathing to the room, indifferent and faithful. There is the specific smell of electronic equipment and the cold that seeps through the basement walls even in summer. And there, in the chair in the blue light, is Sebastian. He is awake. This is not unusual. Sebastian's relationship with the clock is adversarial in the way that introverts' relationships with the social world tend to be adversarial, not through hostility exactly, but through a fundamental, inescapable divergence of need. The world operates on a schedule designed for people who recharge in company and drain in solitude. Sebastian is the exact opposite. He recharges in the quiet basement, in the blue glow, in the hours when absolutely no one will knock on the door or call his name down the stairs or need anything from him. He trains in daylight, in the kitchen, with his family, in the mandatory exchanges that constitute the daily performance of cohabitation. He did not choose this family. Or rather, he chose nothing, because he was a child, and children do not choose. He was born to Robin, and Robin fell in love with Demetrius, and Demetrius had a brilliant daughter named Maru, and now they all live in this wooden house together. The word the world has for what Sebastian is in this arrangement is stepson, a compound word that contains within it the messy math of relationships that exist through adjacency rather than origin. He has a room, he has a bed and a desk and a motorcycle he is building in pieces, the kind of project that is as much about the building as the riding, as much about having something to put his hands on and make real as it is about any destination the motorcycle would eventually reach. The basement, technically, belongs to the house. He has made it his through the slow accumulation of self, through the placement of objects, the selection of lighting, the maintenance of a temperature and a smell and a quality of quiet that his body recognises as the quiet of true belonging. He is programming. He does contract work, digital, the kind that does not require an origin or a face, or the particular social service a person has to maintain when the people giving them money can see them. It pays enough. It pays more than enough. It is the kind of work that is valued solely for its output and not for the quality of the person performing it. And for Sebastian, this is the closest thing to freedom that the world has ever offered him. The capacity to be assessed on what he produces rather than who he is. Because who he is in this house is often framed as a problem. Not a dramatic problem. No one says anything explicitly, but the calculus of parental attention in a blended family with limited hours in the day is not kind to the child who asks for less and receives accordingly. Demetrius is proud of Maru, the way that certain kinds of parents are proud of certain kinds of children. Loudly, and in the specific register of men who have decided that their children's achievements are the most legible version of their own worthiness. The science fair trophies on the shelf, the complex lab experiments, these things are held in the house on the mountain as evidence of something deeply important, something that validates the specific choices Demetrius made and continues to make. Sebastian has no trophies. He has monitors and server fans and lines of code that no one else in this house can read. He sits in the blue light and his fingers move on the keyboard with the easy fluency of someone doing something they have done so many times. It has become a form of silence, a productive silence, a silence that generates value, even if the value is entirely invisible to the people sleeping above him. The motorcycle sits in the corner. One day he will get on it and drive. He does not know where he will drive to, and the destination is far less important than the act. The specific freedom of moving away from a place under your own power, of the wind and the rain and the open road, of being held aloft by your own momentum and having absolutely nothing behind you except the distance you have made. The server fans hum. The rain on the basement window is a faint, irrelevant percussion. He types, "Now stand." Look up at the higher windows of the same house. The upstairs windows, the wooden floors above the blue-lit basement, where the rest of the family sleeps in the particular, comfortable sleep of people whose relationship to their own lives is uncomplicated by deep ambivalence. One window is not dark. Maru's window is lit with a different kind of light, a warm desk lamp, and under it, if you look carefully, the suggestion of shapes, equipment, small machines, the kind of workshop that a teenager with extraordinary gifts and no limitations on her imagination eventually fills every available surface with. Circuit boards and sensors and half-constructed things that are classified not as toys or as art but as experiments, prototypes, brilliant attempts. Maru is Robin's daughter and Demetrius's daughter, and this means she is the child of this house in a way that Sebastian is not, and she knows this in the way that everyone in a household knows the quiet geometry of origin without needing to name it. She is the native. He is the import. The house was built for her in some ancestral sense, and she has grown into it, filled it, justified the space entirely. She is brilliant. This is not parental bias, or not only parental bias. She is genuinely, conspicuously, remarkably intelligent in the specific way that makes other people slightly uncomfortable. The way that intelligence does when it lacks the rough social edges that make it easier to ignore. She understands machines the way some people understand music, intuitively, and at a level that bypasses the verbal and the explicit, as though the logic of mechanism is a language she was born speaking. She works at the clinic because she is capable and kind, and she studies the stars and builds her gadgets because she loves to, and she is very good at all of it. But the robots, like the one she is tinkering with now, are not just gadgets. The robots are hers, entirely, privately, specifically hers, in a way that nothing else is. She builds them because building them is speaking in a language no one is watching, no one is grading, no one is going to ask her to explain or justify. She builds them because the act of making a thing that moves, that responds, that exhibits behaviour, satisfies something in her that no amount of academic or scientific achievement touches. The robots do not love her back. This is strangely one of their greatest virtues. Human love is infinitely complicated by expectation. Love from a father who has chosen you as the primary repository of his pride is particularly complicated. It is real love, she doesn't doubt it. But it is love with load-bearing requirements. Love that requires you to keep performing at the level that justifies the investment of pride. Love that she is afraid. The fear is mostly quiet, mostly background, of one day failing to deserve. The robots require nothing. They move when she tells them to, and stop when she tells them to, and their small mechanical faces. She's given some of them faces, small LED arrangements that suggest expression. Look at her with the same blank constancy, regardless of whether she has been brilliant today or merely ordinary, regardless of whether she is the golden child or just a girl exhausted by the crushing weight of her own potential. She sits at the desk. She holds a small motor in her hands, the kind of motor that is barely the size of a coin, that hums against her palm when she applies current to it. She holds it and feels it vibrate, and the vibration travels up her fingers and into her wrist and settles somewhere in her chest, and she closes her eyes. Just this. Just the small, real, uncomplicated pulse of a machine doing what it was made to do. Just this. The rain falls on the roof above her. Leah, the forest thickens as you leave the mountain path and descend toward the southern woods, cindersap forest. The trees here are different, wider, older, the kind that have stood long enough to develop their own local mycology, heavy coats of moss, root systems as wide underground as their canopy is wide above. The understory is dark and the rain sounds different here again. Muffled now, caught by the thick layers of foliage before it reaches the ground, so that by the time a drop completes its journey from cloud to forest floor, it has touched perhaps 8 different surfaces. It has slid down pine needles and along thick boughs, and dripped from one massive old leaf to the next, arriving at the dark earth, changed and quiet and slow. The cabin is here somewhere. You find it by the faint glow of its single window, a low, draughty structure, the kind built for a specific loneliness, the kind of shelter that is exactly the minimum required and no more. The wooden door is warped in its frame. The roof has been repaired several times with different materials, a patchwork of function over beauty, the aesthetic of someone who has prioritized staying dry over anything else. It smells of sawdust. This is the first thing you notice when you stand outside it. Even through the rain-washed air, even from a distance, there is the specific, clean smell of fresh cut wood, of art in progress, of someone who works with their hands and whose hands have been at work recently. Inside, you can see through the window the edge of a workbench, and on it, a carving, not finished, still rough at the edges, but already legible. The shape of a woman, or perhaps a tree, or perhaps both. Leah is not asleep. She is sitting in the single chair by the window, not working, not reading, simply sitting with her hands in her lap and her eyes on the rain outside, and the particular stillness of a person who has gotten very good at sitting with silence, because silence has been her primary companion for a long time now. She moved here from the city. She left a life, a partner named Kel, a life that felt cramped, an apartment with radiators that clanked, and a view of the building across the alley, and she came here, to this dense forest, to this drafty cabin, to make art. This decision sounded beautifully clean in the making. In the living, it has proven infinitely more complicated. The art is good. This is important to say, because the suffering of the artist is so often framed as evidence of artistic merit, and the point is not that. The point is, the art is genuinely good, separately from what it costs her to make it. The sculptures she makes from wood and stone have a quality that reviewers, on the occasions when they have seen them, describe as elemental, inevitable, as though the forms were always there inside the materials, and she simply removed everything that wasn't them. She has sent photographs to galleries in the city. She has received responses. Some of them have been encouraging. Some have been interested. None of them have yet converted to the specific thing she needs, which is not validation, but income. The specific, material, unglamorous fact of enough money to keep the cabin warm and the food supply adequate through a long winter in the valley. She is close to the edge. The word starving is one she applies to herself with some irony. She is not technically starving, not in the medical sense, but the financial margin between her current life and genuine crisis is thin enough that she can see across it. She can see the specific shape of the disaster waiting on the other side, and the fear of it lives in her like a quiet engine, always running, always generating a low-frequency anxiety that she has to actively manage in order to work at all. And then there is the phone. The phone rings sometimes in the evenings, not often, but with enough regularity that it has become a specific kind of dread. Kel, the ex she left in the city, the one who said, when she explained her dreams, "You can't make a living from sculpture," and by can't meant won't, and by making a living meant making enough to justify the choice, and by the choice meant you. The calls are not threatening. They are not dramatic. They are simply the sound of someone who does not understand why she left, and cannot fathom that the understanding might not be available to them, because the understanding requires being inside her body, in the drafty cabin, with the smell of sawdust, and the sculptures lining the walls, and the rain in the forest outside, and only then does it make sense. She does not answer. She sits in the chair and listens to it ring, and watches the glass fog from her breath, and waits for it to stop, and when it stops, she breathes out carefully, as though breathing out too fast would undo the ending of the sound. The cabin is quiet again. The misjudges the blade. She turns them over. She looks at them the way you look at a thing that has served you faithfully, and you want to acknowledge the faithfulness without being sentimental about it. She will make something tomorrow. This is always true. Tomorrow she will make something, and the making will be worth the cold and the fear and the phone, and the thing she makes will stand in the world as evidence that she was here, and that she chose this, and that the choice was not foolish even when it felt like it. She turns off the lamp. The forest closes around the cabin, and the rain continues. Abigail walked back up through the dark woods, back to the mountain path, and follow it higher, past the point where most trails end, past the point where the path becomes less trail and more sheer intention, until you reach the edge of a clearing in the trees. And there, at the edge of the clearing, standing in the rain, is Abigail. She is not going inside. She is standing at the edge of the clearing, looking at the wizard's tower. That tall stone structure, impossibly real looking for the size of this small valley, its windows glowing with a dim, purplish light that has absolutely nothing to do with any lamp that runs on oil or electricity. She stands in the rain with her hands at her sides and her face turned up toward the tower, and the expression on her face is the expression of someone looking at something that might be, in some essential way, the truest thing in their world. The purple hair is completely soaked. It has never quite washed out, and she has stopped trying to make it. Pierre, her father, has opinions about the hair. Pierre's opinions about the hair are symptoms of a larger set of opinions about Abigail, about the way she looks, the way she spends her time, the way she does not seem to be converting into the approximate, traditional daughter he had imagined when he imagined having a daughter. She likes the dark cave, and the fighting, and the danger, and the haunting melody of the flute, and the wizard's tower. She does not like the soft life of the general store, the small commerce, the safe circle of the expected. She has felt, for as long as she can remember, like an error, like a figure that does not match its frame, a painting hung in the wrong room, too dark for the space, the subject wrong for the house. The wizard lives in that tower, and the wizard knows things about this valley that no one else knows. There is a question that Abigail has been wanting to ask for years, the kind of question that you don't ask the person most likely to answer it, because the answer would change everything, and changing everything is terrifying even when everything is already wrong. The question is about the purple hair. Or rather, the purple hair is the symptom. The question is about origin, is about whose blood runs in her veins, and what it means, and whether the strangeness she has always felt, the way this valley sometimes seems to respond to her, in ways it doesn't seem to respond to others, the way she has always had an affinity for the uncanny, whether these things are evidence of something true about who she really is. Magnus Rasmodius, the wizard, her possible biological father, does not know she suspects. Or perhaps he does. He is the wizard. He is old enough and perceptive enough that the line between professional mysticism and genuine perception blurred for him a long time ago, and he reads the valley the way an experienced reader reads a room. He remembers Caroline, Abigail's mother, taking secret walks to this tower years ago. He has noticed the purple-haired girl who lingers at the edge of the clearing on nights like this one, in the rain, looking up, He has not come to the window. Perhaps he is waiting. Perhaps she is waiting. Abigail stands in the rain and feels the cold enter her coat and settle against her skin, and she does not move. She is occupying a space that is neither here nor there, neither outside in the valley nor inside the tower that might explain her, neither Pierre's daughter nor the wizard's daughter, neither the ordinary girl she was supposed to be, nor the extraordinary person she suspects she might be if she could ever find a name for it. The purple hair runs down her face in small rivulets. She shoves her hands deeper into her coat pockets. The tower hums softly in the dark, and she stands there, in the rain, in the woods, on the mountain, and she is 11 things at once: afraid, and brave, and lonely, and angry, and curious, and stubborn, and young, so very young, and none of them resolve into each other. They simply coexist in the way that the contradictions of young people coexist, loudly, chaotically, without apology. She will go home soon. She will go back down the path to Pierre's house and hang her wet coat by the door and go to her room and sit at her flute and play until the questions recede enough to finally sleep. And tomorrow she will be in the store, behind the counter, smelling like incense because she is always smelling like incense, and Pierre will look at her with that particular look. Not anger, not disappointment, exactly, but the look of someone whose life does not quite add up in the column they expected, and she will look back, and they will be strangers in a family, and the tower will be up on the hill, and the rain will have stopped, and she will wait. She is very good at waiting. She has had a lot of practice. The tower hums softly in the dark. Abigail finally turns, pulls her coat tight against the chill, and begins the walk back down. Phase 4, the suburbs and the beach. Come down from the mountain. Come down from the forest and the dark clearing and the tower and all the questions it holds. And let the muddy path carry you back into the lower valley, where the houses are closer together, and the streets are lit at irregular intervals by the dull amber glow of lantern posts, and the rain sounds different again down here, softer somehow, the way sounds soften when there are solid walls to break them. The valley is a small place. You can walk from one end of it to the other in 15 minutes, longer if the mud is deep, and the rain has been falling all night, so the mud is exceptionally deep. But 15 minutes is all, and in those 15 minutes you might pass every house where every person in this town sleeps, and dreams and holds their quiet interior lives, and you would never know from the outside how much immense weight each of those lit windows holds, how much history and grief and aspiration exists behind each closed door. Walk east. Sam Jody's house is ordinary. This is the correct word for it. Ordinary. Not in a pejorative sense, but in the specific sense of a house that has organised its exterior life around not calling attention to itself, around presenting a surface that conforms to the neighbourhood's average temperature of expression. A modest porch, window boxes that were tended through spring and summer, a welcome mat that means it. From the outside, it is a house that has done everything right and has the specific look of a family that believes in the possibility of things being perfectly fine. The light in the upstairs room is on. Sam's light. He is not sleeping. 17 years old is not an age that comes with guaranteed sleep. The body at 17 operates on a schedule that is genuinely misaligned is rarely credited as such, but Sam is not awake because of biology tonight. He is awake because of the sound from the room at the end of the hall. Footsteps. His father is pacing. Kent. Kent came home from the war in the Gatoro Empire. There was a terrible war, and Kent was in it. And then he came home, and something came home with him that does not have a name that is easy to say over dinner, or in front of the children, or in the grocery store. A thing that lives in the body and in the nervous system, and reactivates in the dark, and during unexpected sounds, and in the space between one breath and the next. This thing makes him pace. Not every night, not predictably. Sometimes he sleeps fine, and the house is quiet, and Sam lies in his room, and hears nothing but the rain, and thinks maybe tonight is a good night. And sometimes he hears the heavy footsteps, and he knows tonight is not a good night. He does not go to check on his father. He has learned this the hard way, by trial and error, and the specific error of interrupting a man who is walking the hall in a state that is not quite waking and not quite anything else. He has learned to lie still and trust that the walking will end and the quiet will come back and his father will return to bed, and in the morning everything will look normal again. He has gotten very good at lying still. Sam has been managing the house since Kent left. This happened gradually, the way all foundational changes in family structure happen gradually. Not a declared crisis, not an assignment, just a slow redistribution of weight according to who could carry it. Jodie manages what she can and is doing her absolute best, genuinely, and Vincent is too young and requires management himself. Which leaves Sam, 16-year-old, then 17-year-old Sam, with his guitar in the corner and his skateboard by the door, and the part of his life that belongs to adolescence, the music, the friends, the future, quietly postponing itself while he figures out what needs to be handled. He picked up the guitar when his father left. He plays when the house is quiet, not loud, not the kind of playing that wants to be heard, but the kind that is a private conversation with something that asks nothing and receives what he gives without judgment. He has gotten quite good in the way that people who play in private rather than for audiences sometimes get quite good, genuinely, for its own sake, without the performance anxiety that tends to flatten the feeling out of music. He wants to start a band. He has mentioned this. Sebastian, up on the mountain, is ready to play drums, and Abigail has been practicing her keyboard. There have been conversations, there has been enthusiasm, and some practices, and the band has not quite cohered yet into the real thing, held back by schedules, and by the fact that Sam's schedule is held back by the footsteps in the hall, and the small brother who needs watching, and the father who is home now, but is not quite all the way home. This is the tragedy that sits in Sam's room with him tonight, quiet and familiar. His father came back, and he loves his father, and his father is not the person who left. And the person who left was partially the anchor of Sam's understanding of himself, the man he was going to become in some hazy, general, father-to-son way. And the person who came back needs deep care, and the care is Sam's to give, and he gives it because what else? And it is exhausting in the specific way that unasked for responsibility is exhausting. Without resentment, without resolution, simply continuously, the footsteps slow, a pause, the creak of a bed, Silence. Sam lets out a long breath. He has apparently been holding for 10 minutes. He picks up the guitar from beside the bed. He places his fingers on the strings but does not play. Just holds the shape, the formed chord, the potential of music unreleased. He holds it there until his own heartbeat has slowed back to something normal, and then, very quietly, barely audibly, he plays 3 chords: the rain, the chord, the quiet. He will be all right. Alex, the yard beside Evelyn and George's house, contains, among other things, a dog pen, a small wooden shed, and in the narrow space between the shed and the fence, in the dark and the rain, is Alex. He is doing push-ups. He is doing push-ups in the rain at midnight in the dark, and he has been doing them for long enough that his arms are shaking, and the ground beneath his palms is muddy, and the rain is running down his neck and into his collar, and he is not stopping, because stopping means the push-ups are over, and when the push-ups are over, there is nothing between him and the inside of his own head. The inside of Alex's head is not a safe place tonight. It is not usually a safe place. He is an athlete, genuinely, constitutionally, in the specific way that some bodies are simply built for athletic performance and know it without being told. He is fast. He is strong. He trains with a consistency that would be admirable if it weren't so obviously compensatory. Not the training of a person who loves the sport, though he does love the sport, but the training of a person who has discovered that as long as the body is exhausted enough, the mind quiets down. He is trying to exhaust himself. His mother was Clara. This is the fact that most people in Pelican Town know without knowing entirely what it means to him. Clara died. This is known. What is less known is the specific texture of her absence. The way a mother lost young tends to remain, not as a memory, but as a quality of the air in any room, a presence defined entirely by its removal, a warmth that you feel only as the cold that has replaced it. Alex was young enough that his memories of her are not narrative but sensory. The sound of a voice, a smell, a particular quality of touch. The details have gone soft at the edges, the way photographs do when they are handled often with loving, careless hands. And his father is not dead. This is sometimes vastly worse. His father is not here, is somewhere in the world living a life that does not include Alex in it, having chosen this, having left with the specific, devastating carelessness of a person who treats their own children as an inconvenience of circumstance. Before he left, he was present in the way that certain kinds of men are present, loudly, critically, in the register of someone who has decided that the best compliment they can give a son is the withholding of all compliments, so that the son will be motivated to earn what is in fact never going to be offered. This is the voice in Alex's head tonight. He cannot make it stop by being rational about it. He knows, intellectually, that his father was wrong. He knows that his grandparents love him deeply. He knows that he is worthy of love that is not conditional and praise that is not weaponized. He knows. But knowing is a different organ than feeling. And the feeling, at midnight, when the push-ups finally become too much and his arms give out and he presses his face into the cold, wet grass. The feeling is the voice, speaking very quietly, saying the exact same things it's always said. He breathes, mud against his cheek, rain on his back. The dog in the pen, Dusty, shifts, hearing him, and makes a soft sound, Inside the armour is a boy who is not entirely sure he deserved to be left by both parents, and has never quite been given the vocabulary, or the permission, or the safe enough space to figure out that he didn't. He gets up. He wipes his hands on his soaked shirt. He goes inside. He sleeps eventually, heavily, the sleep of a body that has been used well past its limit. It is not restful sleep. It is the sleep of someone who has temporarily outrun the inside of their own head and knows that it will be there in the morning, unfazed, waiting. Elliot walked down through town all the way south, past the houses, past the ranch, past the bluffs, until the path opens up and you feel it before you see it. The ocean. Or rather, you hear it. At night, in the rain, the ocean is not scenic. It is not the blue and white postcard ocean of summer afternoons. It is the midnight ocean, the autumn ocean, and it is enormous and dark and extraordinarily loud. A deep, continuous, layered roar that has no rhythm in the way the rain has rhythm. The rain is percussive, measured, countable. The ocean is not. It is a sound beyond rhythm, a white noise so complete it fills the skull like water fills a container, pressing evenly on every single wall. Stand on the wooden dock. Feel the wood shift slightly under you, not alarmingly, just with the low organic responsiveness of weather-worn timber that has been wet and dry 1,000 times and has settled into a relationship with motion. Feel the spray on your face, cold and saline and immediate. Water from somewhere in the middle of the ocean that has travelled 1,000 miles to arrive, finally, on your cheekbone. Look at the beach cabin. It is small. It is, honestly, not adequate for winter. This is visible from outside. The single-paned windows, the gaps in the boards that let in the light and the cold, the chimney that works but barely, the general impression of a structure that was built with summer in mind and has been conscripted into year-round habitation by someone who either cannot or will not live anywhere else. Inside there is a candle and a heavy typewriter. Elliot sits at the typewriter. He sits at the typewriter the way some people sit at a deathbed, with the specific combination of hope and dread and obligation and love that belongs to situations where you have committed completely to something that might not survive. The typewriter is old. He chose it deliberately, aesthetically, in the way he deliberates all his aesthetic choices, which is to say, with more time than most things warrant, and with the occasional suspicion that the aesthetics are doing work that the substance should be doing instead. He is writing a novel. He has been writing a novel for longer than he tells people. When they ask, and they ask in the gentle, careful way of people who know enough to know, there is a reason to be careful. He says 2 years. The actual number is larger. The actual number involves a period in the city and a period of several creative communities he cycled through, and the slow, humiliating discovery that the people in those communities were not doing better than him. They were simply doing it in more companionable misery, and misery in company looks, from a distance, like real momentum. He came here to be alone with the work. The theory was, remove the distractions of the city, the social obligations, the ambient noise of a life with many claims on it, and what remains is the work. And the work is what matters. And the work, without obstruction, will finally become the thing it has been struggling to become through all its false starts and abandoned drafts, and the specific uncertain whether the map they're following leads anywhere or ends abruptly in the cold ocean. He is in the middle of the novel. He has been in the middle of the novel for... He tries very hard not to calculate this. What he knows is that the candle is burning, and the typewriter is warm under his fingers, and outside the cabin, the ocean is extremely loud. Occasionally, he can feel the spray against the window even this far from the water, and the cold seeps in from every direction, and some mornings he wakes up and the water in the basin by the sink has a thin skin of ice on it, and none of this is a metaphor. All of it is simply the material reality of the life he chose and continues to passionately choose. He types a sentence. He reads it back. He types it again, differently. He is afraid, deeply, quietly, in the way you're afraid of things you have no power to prevent, that the novel will not be good enough. Not by his standards, which he knows are high, but by the standard of worth, of justification, of the specific verdict that readers and publishers and the market and time render on the object of someone's complete devotion. He has given years to this book. He has given warmth and comfort and proximity to other people and the security of a regular income. He has given his 20s to it, and his 20s are going, have been going, and the book is still unfinished, and the ocean outside the cabin does not care. The ocean is the best companion for this kind of fear, actually. The ocean is so much older than any book, and has never needed to justify itself to anyone. And looking at it, or listening to it, which is what you do at night, has the brackish, paradoxical comfort of scale. His book might fail. His entire literary project might be an act of sustained hubris. He might be ordinary, and his ordinariness might be made legible to the world precisely through the attempt to demonstrate otherwise. These are the fears, and the ocean roars and says, yes, and he types another sentence. The candle gutters in a draft. The ocean roars. He is still here. He is still trying. The trying is everything, in the specific way that people who give their lives to things discover is both totally insufficient and absolutely the only thing. He will go to bed soon. He will go to bed, and the ocean will continue without him, indifferently, and in the morning the cold will be real, and the page will be real, and he will begin again. He always begins again. Phase 5. The return to the farmhouse and sleep down. Begin walking. You know the way. You've been walking all night, through the rain, through the town, up the mountain, and down into the forest, and across to the beach and back, and your body knows the exact weight of it, knows the good, honest heaviness of a body that has covered real ground in the dark. But you are not tired in the way that makes sleep feel like a collapse. You are tired in the way that makes sleep feel like a wonderful arrival, like returning to the place you have been heading all along. Turn your back on the ocean and walk north, back through town. The square is very quiet now. The saloon's last window has gone completely dark. Shane is walking home, not staggering, just walking, his hands in his pockets, his head slightly bowed against the rain, a man in slow, uncertain transit between the worst version of himself and whatever might come next. He does not see you. You are part of the night to him, part of the rain, part of everything that simply exists at this hour without demanding anything. Let him pass. The path east of town narrows and becomes a muddy dirt track through a stand of old maple, their bare branches filtering the rain into something fine and soft. And then the track opens up, and the overgrown fence posts emerge from the dark, and the gate, iron, slightly rusted, swinging open, in the way it has always swung open, a little farther than you left it, because the earth has settled under its hinge post, and the gate has its own opinions about latches now. The farm, your farm, even in the rain and the dark, in this particular midnight hour, it is recognisable as yours, by the specific disorder of it, the beds that are not yet fully tended, the wild grass at the edges, the old fence lines that need mending, the ancient oak at the corner of the property that predates all of it, all the human intention laid over this land, and simply stands in its immense, sheltering patience. Your boots on the path make the familiar sound, wet gravel, then the wooden planks of the porch steps, then the specific creak of the second step from the top, the one that has always creaked and that you have already stopped noticing, because it is simply the welcoming voice of your porch saying, "You're home." The key slides into the lock, the door opens inward, and you finally step out of the rain. Close the door, stand still for a moment in the dark entry of the farmhouse, and let the sound of the rain shift. Let it move from the inside sound to the outside sound, from the thing you're in to the thing you're merely listening to. It is all around you still, drumming on the roof and on the glass windows, patient and continuous, but it is no longer touching you. You are inside. You are warm. The stone fireplace holds the last of the evening's glowing embers. Not a fire, not exactly, but the deep, slow heat of a fire that burned well earlier and has now settled into the stage that is better than fire in some ways, the stage that gives intense heat without demanding attention, that glows deep red-orange between the ash and requires absolutely nothing from you. Light a single lantern, the flame catches on the first try, and the light expands in a gentle amber circle out from the lantern in your hand, and the farmhouse assembles itself in this light in the way that rooms assemble themselves when only one warm source illuminates them. It is partial, shadowed, the corners left to their own devices, the familiar objects emerging from the dark one at a time, the wooden table, the woven rug, the tall bookshelf, the window over the sink with the rain streaking its glass. Set the lantern down on the table. Take off your heavy coat and hang it on the iron hook by the door, where it will drip quietly and dry through the long night. Your boots come off. The cold from outside that has seeped into your feet begins to ease immediately, replaced by the warmth of the wooden floor, of the house, of being contained in a space that has been beautifully warmed. Stand for a moment in your socks on the wooden floor and feel the shift, from cold to warm, from outside to inside, from the long restless walking of the night to this absolute, unbroken stillness. This is what you are here for, not just here in this farmhouse, though that too, but here in the valley, in Pelican Town, in this life you have chosen or been given or inherited in a letter from a grandfather who saw something in you that perhaps you're only now beginning to understand. You are here because this place needed someone to arrive, and you arrived. Think about what you've seen tonight. Shane at the bar stool, his thumb moving back and forth against the warm ceramic. A man who grew up knowing the weight of an egg and the particular trust of a small animal. will say, "Come and see the chickens. Come and feel the season change. Come and remember that you are not just a function." Penny in the dark trailer, reading by the last of a flashlight beam, her lips moving on the words of someone else's better world. She needs someone who will look at her, not at what she does, but at who she is, and find it entirely sufficient. Harvey, in his chair above the clinic, asleep now, the shortwave radio murmuring to itself. A man who chose responsibility over dream, and chose it correctly, and carries the choosing without bitterness, and only needs, occasionally, someone to sit with him and say, "The dream was real. The fact that it couldn't happen doesn't make it less real." Emily and Haley in the house on Willow Lane, one burnishing herself to a shine because it is the only thing no one can take, one burning a candle in the dark and calling it peace. Two sisters who have held each other up so long they have become, in some fundamental way, each other's structural support. They need someone who will stand in the door and say, "You are both enough, separately. Put down the work of holding each other. I'll stand here for a while." Sebastian, in the blue-lit basement, typing, building the motorcycle in the corner one piece at a time, making himself invisible so that being overlooked will be something he chose rather than something done to him. He needs someone who will come down the basement stairs without announcement and say nothing in particular, and sit and simply be present in the way that says, "I see you here. I wasn't looking for Maru. I was looking for you." Maru, upstairs with the small motor vibrating against her palm, the robots waiting in their quiet, undemanding rows. She needs someone who will ask about the robots, not what they're for, not what they'll eventually be used for, but simply, what did this one do when you first turned it on? What face did you give it? What did you name it? Leah, and the drafty cabin in the forest with the carving on the bench and the phone not ringing any more tonight. She needs someone to stand in the door and say, "I'll eat whatever you make. If it's nothing, that's fine. Tell me what you're working on. I have time." Abigail, walking back down the mountain in the rain, her purple hair soaked, her pockets full of the questions she didn't ask tonight. She needs someone who will stand with her at the edge of the clearing and look at the tower and say nothing, nothing at all, and by their silence communicate, "Whatever you find out, it doesn't change what I think of you. You are not your origin. You are what you do with the questions." Sam, in the room at the top of Jodie's house, playing 3 careful chords in the dark while his father paces. He needs someone who will listen to the music. Really listen. Not as background, not as nice, but with full attention. The way you give full attention to something that cost its maker something real. He needs someone who will say, "Play it again." Alex, in the yard, face in the mud, the dog watching from the pen. He needs someone who will push back, a little, gently, with affection, against the armour he has built so carefully. Who will say, "You don't have to be the toughest person in the room when you're with me. I'm not measuring that." Elliot, at the typewriter, the ocean outside the cabin, making its enormous, indifferent sound. He needs someone who will read what he's written, not as a favour, not as kindness, but because they genuinely want to know what he has been doing with all of this time, with all of this sacrifice, with all of this terrifying hope. He needs someone to turn the pages and be entirely unwilling to stop. You are that someone. You, the farmer, the newcomer, the person who arrived on a bus in the rain with nothing but a letter and the instructions of a man who loved this place. You are the variable that this town has been missing. Not a hero, not a saviour, just a person who sees people and stays and keeps coming back and asks the next question and shows up in the rain. That is all healing ever requires of anyone. That you show up in the rain, sit down, find the chair nearest the fireplace, the old wooden one with the slightly uneven leg that tips you very slightly to the left, which you have learned to compensate for without thinking about it. Sit in it. Let the soothing warmth from the embers find your hands, your shins, your face. The clock on the wall is ticking. It is a grandfather clock, or something close to one, old and dark wooded and present in the room, the way large old things are present, with the specific authority of things that have measured more time than you have lived. Its tick is slow and deliberate, not a frantic tick, a considered one, a tick that is saying one moment at a time, only ever one at a time. Listen to it, the rain on the roof, the embers in the grate, the clock ticking, your own deep, even breath. These are the only sounds in the entire world right now. Everything else has gone completely quiet. The valley, the town, the mountain, the ocean, the people in their houses with their complicated, beautiful, heartbreaking interior lives. All of it perfectly quiet. And you are here. And you are warm. And it is finally time to sleep. I am going to count down for you now from 10 to 1. With each number, you will feel yourself descending. Not falling, not dropping, but descending the way a feather descends, slowly, in long spirals, through warm air, taking its time, in no hurry whatsoever, because there is nowhere to be, and nothing left to do for the rest of this long and quiet night. Breathe in, breathe out. 10. The rain is on the roof. It has been there all night, and it will be there when you wake, and you don't have to do anything about it. The embers glow in the grate. Your feet are warm. Your hands are resting open on your knees, or in your lap, or at your sides, completely still, completely at ease. Breathe in slowly, all the way down. Breathe out, all the way out. Let the number 10 settle over you like a thick blanket, like the specific weight of a blanket that is exactly right, that has been warmed by the room, that is heavy enough to feel like an embrace. Your eyes are closed. 9. The clock ticks, one beat, then the pause, then the next. Tick, tock. You can feel the valley around the farmhouse, the fields you will tend in the spring, the river to the south, the mountain to the north, the town in between with its lights all out now or dark. Everyone sleeping, everyone resting, everyone, including you, in this particular moment, beginning to deeply rest. Breathe in and feel your chest rise. Breathe out and feel everything soften. 8. Your shoulders have dropped further than you realised they could drop. There is always more relaxation available than we think there is. The body holds more than one layer of tension, and as each layer releases, another becomes accessible, deeper, older. The tension that belongs to today, the tension that belongs to last week, the tension that belongs to years ago, carried quietly in the muscles of the upper back, waiting for a night exactly this quiet to finally let go. Let it go. Breathe in and feel the deepening. Breathe out and feel the settling. 7. The rain speaks to the room roof in its slow, patient language. You don't have to go anywhere, it says. You don't have to figure anything out. You have done enough for today, and today is over. The embers shift in the hearth. A small sound, the compressed breath of wood becoming ash, the last of the day's warmth releasing itself into the warm room. And then quiet again. Breathe in, breathe out. 6. You are halfway down now, halfway between the surface of waking and the deep, heavy quiet of sleep. In this middle place, the thoughts that remain are slow and undemanding. Not problems, not plans, not things you forgot to do. Just images. The rain on the bus window, the gravel under your boots, the amber light of the saloon, Shane's hands, Penny's flashlight, Harvey's radio, still murmuring in the dark. These people are real. Their sadness is real, and tomorrow, the work of healing them begins again. But not now. Now, breathe in. Now, breathe out. 5. The clock. Tick. 1 moment. Tock. The next. This is all time ever is. 1 moment, and the next, and the next. The clock has been counting moments in this valley since before you arrived, since before the valley had a name, since the rain first fell on these hills. It will count moments after you, and this fact, which might sound lonely, is in this particular hour, in this particular warmth, a profound, small comfort. The moments continue, the valley continues, the rain continues, and you are here for this one, this exact one. Tick, breathe in, talk, breathe out. 4. Your body is very heavy now, the good heaviness, the kind that belongs to sleep, real sleep, deep sleep, the kind from which you wake feeling as though you have been somewhere, as though the hours were not empty, but full of something necessary and dark and restoring, the way the ground is restoring when the rain falls on it all night, and by morning it is ready to grow things again. You are that ground. This sleep is that rain. Breathe in and fill yourself with it. Breathe out and let it sink in. 3. The sounds are further away now. The rain is there. It is still there. It will always be there. The patient rain of the valley in autumn. But it is at a safe distance, as though you have moved further from it, deeper into the house, deeper into yourself, into a room where the sounds of the outside world arrive as whispers, as suggestions, as soft and rhythmic evidence that the world is continuing without requiring anything from you. The clock ticks, your breath moves, the embers glow. 2. Almost. You're almost there. The sleep is very close now. You can feel it, the way you feel a room's warmth before you enter it, the way you can sense a presence before you see it. It is warm and dark and entirely without demand. It has been here all along, waiting, patient, the way all good things are patient, the way the valley is patient, the way the rain is patient, the way Ealing is patient. You have walked a long way tonight. You have seen a great deal. You have carried, for a few hours, some portion of the weight that these people carry every day, and you have not dropped it. You have brought it gently back to the farmhouse and set it down by the door, and in the morning it will belong to tomorrow, and tomorrow you will carry it differently, with more context, with more compassion, with a complete knowledge of what it costs to be any one of these ordinary, extraordinary